this country defaults on its obligations, it will be much worse than the Great Depression. It would make the massive financial crisis of 2008 look mild. It will make what we just went through look like a quaint little crisis. When Moody's said that it's considering downgrading our nation's credit score so it won't be a AAA anymore, their threat was not to downgrade the nation once we default on our debt on August 2nd. Their threat was to downgrade us now, mid-July, because we have gotten this close to default, because Congress is willing to put the full faith and credit of the United States in this much danger because of something they could resolve with a vote if they wanted to. And if we do actually default on purpose, not only does the government effectively shut down, not only do Social Security checks very likely stop going out to the people, for example, who live off that check, not only do $50 to $100 billion likely just disappear for anybody who holds Treasury bills, bye-bye 401k, not only does the stock market tank, but interest rates, which are the only good thing in the economy right now, the only point of flexibility in the economy that is limping along, interest rates which are near zero now, if we default, you want to know what happens to them? Hoik! Which means you take a direct hit on your mortgage, on your credit card bills, on your car loan, on your student loans, on your home equity loan, on any loan you've got. This will have a personal effect on you. And as tough as it gets for you as an individual human, it will get tough in all the same ways for businesses, particularly for small businesses, too. You're not going to be able to get loans, and your loan terms are going to get worse. Same thing for businesses. And as we'll all throw our hands in the air and scream, "Whee!" as we watch indicators like this again, the whole U.S. economy will grind to a halt alongside the government. That's what we are coming up on now. And with that bearing down on us now, I mean, right now, the debt ceiling has to be raised now. You don't necessarily have until August 2nd. Some of this stuff may start to happen anyway. And with that bearing down on us now, House Republicans today in Washington decided that some of the stuff they were going to work on toward getting this whole issue settled, they're going to put it off till next week. They'd like to maybe consider a constitutional amendment. Remember that constitutional amendment idea that didn't go anywhere back in the 90s? Maybe we should kick that around again. Maybe this is a good time to do that. Maybe this is a good time to try a few symbolic votes. Try to get some messaging done. We've got time. In what could not be a more urgent crisis environment, a crisis created entirely by Republicans refusing to do something they did 5 times while George W. Bush was president. In a Congress-created crisis that is now truly urgent, Republicans now say, they'd like to slow things down. What train barreling down at us? Yeah, they're going to schedule some votes for maybe, I don't know. You busy on the 16th of Never at 1/4 Yeah, right? Joining us now is John Stanton, Washington reporter for the Roll Call newspaper. John, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
What's going on right now among Republicans? There does not seem to be a sense of urgency there. Do you think that's a negotiating tactics, or do you have any other sense of where the Republicans might be coming from?
Yeah, I think it's a negotiation. That the leadership has a sense of urgency privately right now. They had, seemed like they had it sort of out there in public a week ago, and they backed away from that. They're now supporting this cut, cap, and balance bill that conservatives want and the balanced budget amendment. And this is more really a negotiating tactic with their own conservatives. They're trying to convince them that they are serious about trying to pass these bills so that when they do fail, because there aren't enough Democratic votes, they will then need to go back to them and say, well, now we have to do the McConnell plan or some other debt limit raising kind of legislation, and they're going to need them to be able to buy into it. And right now, they just don't have that support within their own conference.
That is the dynamic that I sort of thought was going on, and that's why my hair spontaneously combusted today. This is now a wig. When I saw that they were putting off their balanced budget amendment vote until next week, because if the whole idea is to get these votes out of the way, fail on them, and then start negotiating again with their base, we're out of time if this isn't even going to start partway until next week.
Well, they're in a bit of a tricky spot, frankly, because their base thinks what they're trying to do is sort of what you said, which is have these votes, show that they can't pass these things, and then move on to something else that they can do. And to get their base to do this second step, they need them to not believe the first step is what's happening. They need them to believe that they really want to do these things and they have some chance of doing it. And so this week they've decided to postpone the vote, at least for now, in the hopes, I guess, technically, of finding some Democratic votes. The problem is that there are no Democratic votes out there for them. The way they have this balanced budget amendment structured, there's no way they're going to get the 50 or 60 Democrats they're going to need to pass it. They just the votes aren't there right now, and leadership knows this, but the rank and file is not convinced, and they're not particularly convinced that the debt limit is a huge problem. They think that we can hit it and pay Social Security and pay our interest and not have any kind of a major impact on the economy. Well,
that last point, I think, is maybe the most worrying. This idea that it's not just posturing or strategy or trying to get the best deal, but there are some number of Republicans for whom there really isn't any urgency because they're sort of in denial about what the debt ceiling means. How significant is that number of Republicans who feel that way?
It's significant, and it's growing, which is concerning some Republicans, frankly. There are those within the leadership that look at that, and they're a little alarmed, frankly. Last week they had one of George H.W. Bush's top economic advisors come in and address their conference to try to convince them of the seriousness of the issue and of the consequences of it. And members leaving that basically said that they didn't believe him. Partly because George H.W. Bush raised taxes, but partly they feel that this is something that the Obama administration and economists on the left are pushing, and the number is growing. I think leadership thought that number was going to come down as we got closer to August 2nd, that more people would feel the sense of urgency, the need to do something, and it's sort of been the opposite for them, which is, I think, complicating things a lot more than they expected.
John Stanton, Washington writer for Roll Call, who's reporting on this, I have found really helpful for understanding what's going on. Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Finding out that the number of defaults